So I was just having a glasses emergency. My name is Stephen Cowan. I'm the leader of the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham. Can I do two things? Welcome you to the January meeting. And secondly, can I wish you a Happy New Year? There has been some debate on the Happy New Year cutoff. My view, it's the 31st January, not the 7th, as someone told me yesterday. So please accept my best wishes for a fruitful 2026. So we will begin with apologies for absence. I know Councillor Jones is upstairs in a meeting because I saw him as I walked past him. So please accept his apologies for this particular meeting. Do we have any other apologies? Okay. In that case, please note Councillor Andrew Jones. Declarations of interest, are there any? No, that's a very forthright answer. Thank you. Minutes of a previous meeting. Before we do that, any matters arising from previous meeting? Nope. In which case, are those minutes agreed? Agreed. Thanks very much. We therefore move on to the first item, which is the council tax support scheme, and I'll hand over to Councillor Ree.
Thank you very much, Leader. Council tax, as we all know, is a particularly regressive and archaic tax. It's based on property values from over 30 years ago, and it doesn't take account of anyone's ability to pay, and the differentials between the richest and poorest are very small indeed. The council tax support scheme gives us a mechanism through which we can make this a fairer tax, a more progressive tax, and to make it a lot easier for those within the borough who would otherwise struggle to pay it. We take this very seriously. We're spending £10 million to support the most vulnerable residents and making sure they're able to carry on paying throughout the cost of living crisis, which we know is still going on. This scheme supports 4 people in every 10 across the borough, 4 taxpayers in every 10, and still provides 100% support for the most vulnerable residents. Now, across the country, the vast majority of councils have decided to reduce that figure. Most now charge some minimum tax to their most vulnerable residents. We think that this is an important principle, and it's one that we've stuck to. We've heard in the last few weeks that in RBKC, they're taking away that support from some of the most vulnerable. We think this is an important point of principle, and it's something that we're going to protect for as long as we possibly can. As well as the basic support that's been in place for a long time, we also have special provisions for care leavers and for foster carers, neither of which groups pay a single penny of council tax here in Hammersmith and Fulham. And this year, to mark 80 years since the end of the Second World War, we've introduced a 25% council tax cut for veterans living in the borough. This is alongside other cost of living measures that Councillor Harvey has put in place, things like the Crisis Prevention Fund, things like going out and finding pensioners who are entitled to pension credit. And it's something that we always do stand up for the most vulnerable residents in our community. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks for that. Can I ask, are there any questions to Councillor Ree on the council tax support scheme? In which case, is what I would say is how grateful I am to Councillor Ree for his leadership on this. As he quite rightly says, council tax is a regressive tax, and as we know, we are living through a cost of living crisis and affordability crisis, and that the nature of council tax is that it has to be paid month on, month out. So for that, we can say to the people who find it toughest in being able to afford to pay that we're on your side, and that we will help either by removing the charge totally or reducing it significantly, is something that is one of the reasons why we're all in administration. And so it is a cornerstone of what we believe in, and I'm glad again that we can confirm it. And we're one of the few councils in the country that have such a scheme. On that note then, because it's not easy to pay £10 million in this economic climate, so on that note, is this voted through? Thank you. I move next then to the wider issue of council tax base and collection rate, item number 5.
Thank you very much, Leader. So the headline from this report is that we have an increase of about 3,500 properties as part of this council tax based report. This is increasing the size of our council tax base, meaning that we can raise more revenue. Now, part of that comes from the fact that we've been so successful in building new houses here in the borough, making sure that those who live here have somewhere safe and comfortable to call home. We've also increased our council tax collection rate from 97% to 98%. Now, this is partly through the targeted use of data, making sure that we're able to properly identify all of the people living in the borough who are entitled to discounts and those who aren't. The 98% figure isn't speculative. That is what we've raised from previous years. So we think that it's okay now for us to put it, it's prudent for us now to put it into the budget formally. The other thing I think to note here is that we are continuing to charge the second home premium and the empty homes premium. Again, something that helps make council tax, a regressive, unfair tax, a little bit fairer. Those who can afford two properties can afford to pay a little bit more to support those who can't afford to pay at all. Now, this is a choice that we've made because we think it's fair. It's a choice that they haven't chosen to take in the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea. We've seen in the last few weeks they've cut their council tax support, saving £400,000, but they have not taken the decision to do this, which would have raised £12 million. I think that shows the difference in priorities between this Labour administration and the Conservative administration in Kensington and Chelsea. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions on that item? Is that item agreed?
Agreed.
Thanks very much. Item number 6 then, over to you, Councillor Harcourt. Future resident-facing energy proposals. Thank you. Are there any questions to Councillor Harcourt on this? Can I just make a comment really for public understanding is most council departments are vertical. So you have an education department, you have a housing department, you have a community safety department as part of a wider department. And this is how it's structured. The innovation we have in having a horizontal department, which is the climate change unit headed by Councillor Harcourt, I think has produced an interesting consequence, which is it allows us to coordinate the same type of policy across a broad scope of the council, and it cuts through silo working. So I'm particularly pleased to see this particular policy, because it doesn't matter what tenure of housing you live in, whether it's a large private house or whether it's a flat or whether it's social housing or private rented sector housing, the ability that we can say to you, we will work with you to tackle climate change. But secondly, in doing so, we will bring down your energy bills and add to the nation's energy independence is crucial, I think. And I don't think it could have happened unless we had that horizontal cut through. So thank you for that. I've just been in a meeting with Councillor Umay, where we had our regular strategic support portfolio meeting. And actually, as a priority, we were talking about how we get all our social housing, all our council housing to be energy independent. And so, you know, I think that's what we're going to look to do over the next few years. And as a consequence, we'll be able to say to our residents, you'll have significantly lower bills at a time when I think energy independence, looking at what's going on in Greenland and with Russia, it's more important than ever that we are energy independent. So thank you for that. I'm glad we're doing something in our own tiny way to improve the world. If there's no questions on this item, then can I just ask everyone, is this item agreed? Thank you. So it is then. Next, we have item number 7, procurement strategy for Edward Woods Towers, external facade and window replacement works. With you, Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Leader. And may I also offer everyone watching a Happy New Year, if I may. Hello, good evening, Councillor Francis Ume, Cabinet Member for Housing and Homelessness. So, Cabinet, this report sets out the next phase of essential safety and refurbishment works at the Edward Woods estate. Following the Grenfell tragedy in 2017, the leader Steve Cowan put in place an enhanced fire safety plus programme. And as part of that programme, the council undertook some proactive measures to inspect the 3 24-storey buildings at the Edward Woods estate. As part of that, fire safety concerns were identified within the cladding and the PV installations. Now, Cabinet, the first stage of that work has already removed the PV arrays and prepared the buildings for further works. And so this report is seeking the approval to appoint a contractor to deliver the remaining programme. This includes installing new A1 rated non-combustible cladding systems, replacing windows, upgrading ventilation and smoke control systems. These works will ensure the towers meet the building regulations and also significantly improve fire safety, thermal performance, and the long-term integrity of the buildings. Now, to give further assurance, the buildings have been registered with the Building Safety Regulator as part of the Building Safety Act from 2022. We know they have enforced stricter measures when it comes to fire safety in general, but when it comes to specifically high-rise buildings. So we have been working closely with the Building Safety Regulator as part of that process. And the council will need to submit a Gateway 2 application in order to make sure that those works are officially approved. Now, I think it's really important that I really emphasise some of the works the council has been doing to ensure fire safety within these buildings. So there are personal emergency evacuation plans that are in place, PEEPs, as well as the person-centred fire risk assessments, PCFRAs. And it should be noted that actually the PEEPs have been regarded as best practice, and the council has also contributed to wider local authority guidance on best practice when it comes to establishing PEEPs for housing safety. Please be assured that also sprinkler systems have been installed in 580 homes. There is an evacuation system in place that has been discussed with the fire brigade. There have also been upgrades to the wet risers, and there are brand new 60-minute fire-resistant doors, and the council has covered the cost for leaseholders. It's one of our policies to make sure that leaseholders aren't paying the costs for the fire safety, for the fire doors. In addition to that, there has been enhancements to ventilation to prevent damp and mold in the buildings. And then when it comes to communication with residents, there are annual letters. There have also been fire safety booklets which outline all the measures that residents can sort of take to make sure their homes are safe. In addition, and I think this is really important because I want to emphasise, I think you can all agree that it's important that all residents feel safe in their homes. There is strong governance in place. So Cabinet, to give you that assurance, there are papers which you have all seen that have come to the Cabinet space on a quarterly basis that give an overview of the compliance mechanisms that the team put in place, but also on an annual basis gives an overview of compliance across all buildings, as well as a list of all the fire safety mechanisms that are in place. There is further assurance from a senior leadership perspective. So within the council, there are papers that go to the SLT2. There's also the Director of Housing, Richard Shway, as well as the responsible person, the Assistant Director, Richard Buckley, who also provides that assurance from a fire safety perspective. Notwithstanding scrutiny at the Policy and Accountability Committee meetings, but then there is also resident scrutiny too. As part of the fire safety programme, just to remind everyone that a resident-specific group was set up, and so they are also across the works that are happening across the Edward Woods estate, notwithstanding the wider fire safety work that's happening. I've given this really detailed overview because I really think it's important, given the Grenfell tragedy and the learnings that are coming from that this council recognises and has the assurance that there are mechanisms in place and people in place that are closely monitoring the work that needs to be done, but taking proactive measures to make sure all of our residents feel as safe as possible in their homes.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor May. Are there any questions on this item? Councillor Kwan.
Councillor May, could you outline in a bit more detail the measures that are in place and the work that's been done to ensure fire safety for vulnerable residents, older residents, in Fire Safety Plus, but also as these sort of works will be going on to make sure that they're informed and reassured?
Thank you very much, Councillor Kwan, for the question. So just to give an overview, I suppose, of the Fire Safety Plus programme, it includes fire safety checks for all residents, and residents can also request a fire safety visit. I've mentioned the personal emergency evacuation plans that are in place, as well as the person-centred fire risk assessments, and that's ensuring that that's tailored to the needs of the household. So if there are vulnerabilities, they would be identified, captured within that plan, and then obviously that information is shared with the fire brigade as well. So they're across individuals within the homes that might need extra assistance. In addition to that, I've mentioned the letters that go on an annual basis, as well as the communications that are provided for residents that are translated or provided in a different format if that is needed as well. I also want to emphasise, given your portfolio that covers adult social care as well, there is that sort of cross-partnership working collaboration from a housing perspective with adult social care to ensure that there is safety for the residents that are known that may have vulnerabilities and their needs are met. In addition to other elements that are included in the Fire Safety Plus programme, there are sprinklers put into the tower blocks, which I've already highlighted. Better fire assessments take place, things like free plug adapters, as well as pat testing for equipment. I mean, the works in order to ensure that there is that extra rigour and support and safety mechanisms are put in place for all our residents. Hope that helps.
Any more questions about item? All I would say is Fire Safety Plus came about in 2016 when we realised Whirlpool white goods were randomly catching fire. And you might remember that Andy Slaughter MP ran a campaign against that because we couldn't get sufficient guarantees from Whirlpool and Hotpoint and all the other companies that they own. And we did a risk assessment of how many people might have Whirlpool appliances and worked out it would be a very high percentage. We then applied for this likelihood that they could catch fire in our borough. And when we looked at the fact that as people had bought their own homes, they'd changed the fire doors into something they might have got more to their fancy. There weren't sprinklers in all the older buildings. It looked like there could be a catastrophe if we were just unlucky, and particularly the residents who were living in that borough. So we devised that we weren't going to leave things to good luck. We were going to instead intervene, and hence the plus in Fire Safety Plus. It was an initiative pioneered in Hammersmith and Fulham in 2016, a year before Grenfell, I should point out. And what it did was meant that we took the unusual step of replacing people's white goods for free, in placing leaseholders' front doors for free, and taking a number of other measures, which Councillor May mentioned, which includes plug adapters and other sorts of such measures. There's not a day since then that I haven't regretted spending that money. Sorry, that I haven't been pleased that we have spent that money, and there was no regrets in that. It is, as we saw with Grenfell, the worst thing that can happen if a catastrophe befalls you. The residents who were victims of Grenfell are always in our thoughts each year, particularly when we remember the anniversary. And it is all our duties to avoid that. And it's therefore the plus that's important, going that extra measure. And there were officials at the time who said, well, why would you need to do that? You're safe statutorily. But we didn't want to be safe statutorily. We wanted to be absolutely safe. And that's what I think Fire Safety Plus, it's coming up to the 10-year anniversary since we introduced it. And I think it's a policy that should be, that we're very pleased to have. That's the context for it. And I think, it's a policy I'm very pleased that this administration promotes. Councillor Alford, I know you've been very diligent on these matters. So Councillor Alford from the opposition, ask you to take part to speak.
Thank you. I'll keep it as brief as I can. First of all, I fully support all the things that you're doing. So please take that as a total support. of the fire safety measures. There's two questions I do raise. One, my concerns about lithium batteries and the inappropriate places where people leave them. Shall I put it that? Now, I know we've had this at meetings, but I'm sure that you will keep on being stringent that we don't have any inadvertent fires because of people's using or getting cheap lithium batteries and them setting fire, because that is a fire risk. The other thing is I have to declare a personal interest. I had a smart meter installed which set fire to my, or set fire in my house. Yes, well, this was a couple of years ago. I managed to fall downstairs, break my teeth and do all sorts of things because it completely blacked out the house. So I will admit publicly, I am quite neurotic about smart meters. It was installed by E.ON. You know, it wasn't done on the cheap. It wasn't some clever little deal. I hope that when we're checking our properties, we're checking that these smart meters are properly installed and it is not going to do what it did to me. And it was such a luck that I was in the house when it blew up and set fire. And so I admit I'm neurotic about it.
Well, first of all, I'm extremely sorry that you went through that experience, Councillor Alford. It must have been alarming for you, and I wish I didn't know about it. So I'm sorry to find out about it now, and I'm glad you're okay. You can't tell from this, although I can't see you, but but you can't tell, and I certainly never noticed that. In terms of lithium batteries, we have been concerned about it. Councillor May and I have raised this an awful lot, and she might want to come in on this. We've been in the process of changing the tenant agreement because, you know, a lot of people using the electric scooters, which have lithium batteries, and sometimes charging them, and they catch a light. And that should just be stopped. You cannot store that in your flat. And Councillor May will come in on what we've done on that front. The second point is slightly more challenging, which is if you use a mobility scooter, that is a lithium battery. So we have been building a variety of mobility scooter storage units in order that you can both charge them and store them without them being in the flat. Now, I must say, there's a big difference between an illegal scooter and a product you buy, but the lithium battery is challenging in both cases. In terms of the smart meters, we've done a review of all smart meters, and there are very clear British service standards. But we inspect those, and I'll bring Councillor Umeh in. We'll talk to you in a bit more detail about both of those things. But again, thank you for raising those points. They're absolutely the right points to raise.
Thank you very much, Leader, and thank you, Councillor Alford, for the question. And again, I offer my deepest apologies, and yeah, I'm very sorry to hear that. To give you assurance, yes, so the smart meters have been installed, are installed correctly, and obviously I highlighted earlier that there are person-centred fire risk assessments that take place as well to ensure that individual needs are met and they're considering sort of evacuation points within the household. So that sort of covers that side. But yes, to give that assurance, they are installed correctly. I think you raised an excellent point, yes, about the e-bike scooters and the challenges there. I think the London Fire Brigade talks quite significantly about the dangers of e-bikes and the way they are charged. I know that the housing team has also shared some of this guidance. I think the Fire Brigade reported in 2023 there was one fire every 2 days, something like that. The statistics keep growing, so it's quite significant. And it's usually because of incompatibility when it comes to charging. And so people potentially not following the right guidance when it comes to charging these devices. And so, I mean, the leader's already highlighted that one of the things that the housing team is looking at is providing spaces for people to charge, for example, mobility scooters, as he's highlighted. And they are in place across sheltered schemes, and there's more work to be done in that front, but certainly ensuring that residents are following the correct protocol when it comes to e-bikes and e-scooter safety, in terms of charging them, storing them. There's also signage put up within the estates to ensure that people aren't bring them into lifts, because a lot of the fire brigade data is showing that people are sort of carrying them into lifts and fires sort of kick off from there, and it's completely dangerous. So thank you for raising the point. I think there's more to be done around educating in general across all local authorities and housing providers, but the team is certainly focused on making sure that is a priority too.
Anything else, Councillor Holger?
Yeah, very briefly to add to that on a slightly wider issue, it's the actual, not just, and I'm really appreciative of the work you've done. It's an incredible amount of work, but it's disposal of the lithium batteries as well. People are disposing them totally inconsiderately. And as a member of the Western Riverside Waste Authority, the vast majority of fires which shut the service down for hours on end are because people have put lithium batteries into the rubbish. Luckily, most of the fires have been there, but there's no reason why, if somebody chucks one into one of the Euro bins on an estate, why equally it couldn't go up there. So we need to get a slightly wider education out about that sort of matter as well.
Yes, no, it's a very good point, and I can assure you we are doing it. We are very alert to the challenges of lithium batteries. Richard Sway and Councillor May and I have talked about them in many of our strategic portfolio meetings, because it's a relatively new technology, because it's fairly ubiquitous for people to use them as transport, and because there is the tenancy agreement doesn't cover it. So there's been an awful lot of actions that need to be taken, but I know that we've talked about how they're stored on the estates, but also how they're disposed of, and it's something that we're onto. And Richard will bring forward a paper to our future Policy and Accountability Committee on this issue in, I was going to say in the new year, but later on this year. All right. Anything else on that issue? Anything else on this item? Is this item agreed? Thank you very much. That takes us swiftly on to the forward plan of key decisions. That's to note. Is that noted? And then that brings us to the end of the meeting. So thank you for attending, and I will see you in the slightly brighter evening